Hello learners, welcome back. Let's now begin with another agricultural act, that is a Biodiversity Act. The session will be divided in these topics: Introduction to the Biodiversity, National Biodiversity Authorities, Biodiversity Management Committees and Applications of Biodiversity Act. What is biodiversity? If you look at the geological positioning of India, it is have different terrains and the regions. On north side we have Himalaya, on south side we have Indian Ocean, also the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea lining to from west and east port. All that makes the different geographical conditions. Because of that, India is full of different flora and fauna, and that makes the different biodiversity in the Indian territory. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on earth, including plants, animals, microorganisms and ecosystem. India is one of the world's 17 mega diverse countries, hosting rich genetic species and ecosystem diversity. Biodiversity supports food security, medicine, agriculture, climate regulation and livelihood. Rapid industrialization, deforestation, population and climate changes threaten this biodiversity. Conservation of biodiversity is essential for sustainable development of human life as well as for the plant ecosystem. To protect biological resources and associated knowledge, India enacted the Biological Diversity Act in 2002. Let us go into the background of this act. The act was enacted in 2002 and came into force by 2003. It was framed to fulfill India's obligations under the Convention on Biological Diversity (CBD), which is undertook in 1992. CBD emphasizes conservation, sustainable use and fair benefit sharing. Before the act, biological resources were often exploited without local consent. That means the particular crop which is of a more commercial value used to taken up by the other countries and they do their production, and that is why the local farmers will have a less benefit out of it. Traditional knowledge holders did not receive recognition and benefits because of such practices. The Act provides a legal framework to regulate access and ensure protection of such crops, which also lead to a commercial enhancement for such medicinal and agricultural crops. Objective of Biodiversity Act: conservation of biological diversity across the ecosystem, sustainable use of biological resources to prevent over exploitation, fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the biological resources wherever it is getting commercialized, protection of traditional knowledge associated with this biodiversity, regulations of access by foreign individual, companies and institutions, so that the interference by them should be restricted and should be streamlined to get the benefit for local bodies. Promotion of conservation through local communities participation. Scope and applicability applies to all biological resources in Indian territory excluding human genetic material. covers plants, animal, microorganism and their genetic materials. Applies to Indian citizens, foreign nationals, NRIs and other organizations. That means the Biodiversity Act is applicable to the person of Indian origin as well as the person who is living inside the Indian territory. It regulates research, biosurvey, bioutilization and commercial use of all such plants which are registered under the Biodiversity Act. Covers traditional knowledge associated with the biological resources. Many of our traditional systems using the resources which are available in our biodiversity, and hence they are having unique activity and specific activity regarding those. If they use any resources outside the territory, may not be have the denoted claim. Hence, such biodiversity products need to be protected. Includes both in situ and ex situ conservation efforts. In situ means actual habitat and ex situ means outside the habitat. So, if any of this biodiversity plants are getting propagated either in situ or ex situ, will get the protection. National Biodiversity Authority, NBA, is apex body established under this act. The headquarter of this body is in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. It regulates access to biological resources by foreign countries as well as by foreign intruders. Advises the central government on biodiversity conservation. It approves benefit sharing agreements which take place between the commercial bodies and the breeders or the farmers of the country. It opposes grant of IPRs abroad based on the Indian biological resources. One of the example of this is the basmati rice. The basmati rice got a patent outside Indian territory, but later on that patent need to be revoked based on the Biodiversity Act inputs. State Biodiversity Board, established by the state government under this act. Every state will have an authority to establish board, and then they will keep the log of all the such plants which are come under this act. It regulates access by Indian citizen and the companies for production of such plants. Advise state government on biodiversity matters. It promotes conservation at the state level, ensures sustainable use of biological resources and support documentation of biodiversity within the state. Biodiversity management committees, BMCs formed at a local body level like panchayat, municipal corporation and so on. It represents local communities and the traditional knowledge holders who comes together and form such communities. It prepares people's biodiversity register, which also known as a PBR. This biodiversity register is maintained by these local bodies and then it will be delivered to the state bodies. It helps conserve the local biodiversity. It also enforces the Biodiversity Act through this BMCs. BMCs plays a very important role in enforcement and maintenance of Biodiversity Act. It provides input for benefit sharing decisions. The local decisions regarding the profit sharing and benefit sharing are undertook by these BMCs. It also strengthens the grassroots participation in the conservation. The main role is to bring the breeders and farmers and take up the data of the biodiversity plants and then register them in the act. People's Biodiversity Register. It is a document which is maintained at a local level. It is for the local biological resources and the traditional knowledge. It is prepared by BMCs with a community participation. It includes information on flora and fauna and ecosystem services in that local territory. It protects indigenous knowledge from the biopiracy. Biopiracy is the major concern nowadays, where the biological products or plants are getting pirated outside territory or sometimes inside the territory, and they are getting the commercial benefits without providing the profit sharing to the originator. It serves as a tool for conservation and planning of Biodiversity Act. It supports benefit sharing and sustainable practices being used under the Act. Access to the biological resources. Foreign individuals require national board approval before accessing such resources. Indian citizen must inform respective state board for such resources. Through them, the foreign authorities and organization can access those resources. Those resources which are maintained by the local bodies and local BMCs will be handed over to the such foreign organizations. All this need to be documented at a state as well as at the local level. Access include research, commercial use and biosurveys. Prior informed consent of a local communities is essential. Without that, this access is not possible. It prevents unauthorized exploitation of resources. It has been seen in the past that the researcher uses the resources and not giving any credits to the originators or breeders. Hence, it is need to have a proper documentation trail to protect the rights of the breeder, and it also ensures a transparency and accountability in the transaction. Benefit sharing mechanism is one of the major input by the Act. It ensures communities receive benefit from the resource use. So, any foreign or a Indian national want to use such resources should give the monetary benefit or a credit to the originator or the breeder. Benefits may be monetary or non-monetary. It includes royalties, tech transfer and joint venture, where the breeder or the farmer will get the monetary and sometimes non-monetary benefits. It supports local development and conservation efforts. This revenue will also give a boost for the innovation as well as for the conservation of the biodiversity. It approved and monitored by the NBA and by the state boards. It encourages community participation and equity enhancement. More such local communities will participate and will get benefited by this approach. Let us look at the offences and penalties as per the Act. Unauthorized access or transfer is a punishable offence under the Act. That means, any unauthorized foreign organization or even the Indian individual cannot have the access to the plant variety which is registered under the Biodiversity Act. If it does, then they will have to see consequences which go up to the penalties. The penalties include fines and sometimes the imprisonment. Corporate bodies are also liable for violations. Ensures compliance with conservation laws, also act as a deterrent against the exploitation of such biodiversity, and it strengthens the enforcement of Biodiversity Act through these penalties. So, what is the importance of Biodiversity Act? It protects India's rich biological heritage. It supports the goals of a sustainable development of such plant crops, empowers local communities to do more innovation and more research to protect such biodiversity. It promotes ethical research and innovation and also ensures long term ecological balance. Thank you.